Thank you for being here, Dane. We appreciate it so much. Dane is the head of B2B marketing at OpenAI. We're doing a little fireside chat. Dane, want to take a second to just tell us a little bit about your career to date, and then I'll kick off with some questions?
Sure. Well, thank you all for having me. I am very excited to chat with you all. I began my career at Salesforce. So I joined Salesforce circa 2011. So built out a lot of their vertical product marketing. And then I'm like somewhat specialized in this like very precise like area of B2B where I essentially join high growth companies that have been largely PLG companies and help them really take them into the enterprise. So I joined Stripe when it was around 700 employees. Previous, I was kind of the first B2B boots on the ground. They've been all self-serve, very developer focused. And I came in there to help them really build how they go after the enterprise and larger segment. And then I came to OpenAI, similar scenario. OpenAI was largely a consumer business. They had a lot of developers building self-serve on the API. I joined similar size, around 800 employees at OpenAI. And again, I was the first B2B hire, helping them.
How many are there now?
Over 4,000 people at OpenAI now.
Wow. Okay. So for more than 4 times growth in the time that you've been there. So,
a lot of growth in the last 2 years. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Awesome. I watched a thing that you did and at Inbound. That's really a great intro. I watched a thing that you did. Let's talk about it. Do you know what I'm talking about? No. So I watched a talk you gave at HubSpot Inbound, I guess, a year and a half ago, and you were talking about something called AI primitives. Yep. And you were explaining that marketers are just scratching the surface of how to use AI by just using it for content and aren't leveraging its full potential. So can you explain to me what an AI primitive is and how marketers or why marketers you think are overlooking these?
Yeah, I came up with this concept of AI primitives because AI is really hard to follow. I listen to probably 1 to 2 podcasts about AI every day. I go to a job where I work somewhere between 8 and 14 hours, depending on the day.
At like the AI company.
Focus on AI. I think about AI, like I was thinking about AI in the shower this morning. I think about AI all the time, and I cannot keep up. There's so much that happens on all the research labs about companies building an AI. And what I found is like when I was chatting with marketers and people, they were somewhat overwhelmed. They were trying to think about, okay, how do I stay up to date on all the things that are happening? And how do I do that? In some ways, by being overwhelmed, your typical like response to that is to do nothing. It's, hey, I can't figure this out. I'm going to put this over to the side and not worry about it. And so I came up with this idea of AI primitives. It's not rocket scientist, but it's basically what are like the core skill sets that kind of regardless of model progress that I really need to know and think about in my job with AI and how does that apply to marketing. So the 5 primitives that came up was content creation, data analysis, really kind of image and creative work, brainstorming and thinking. And then the 5th one is automation, which includes agents and increasingly more how to do like light coding as well. And so what like I instruct marketers, because I felt everyone was just gravitating towards this like content creation bucket. I was like, think about how you can apply AI to do more data analysis, to do more creative work, to use it more as a brainstorming and thinking about how you can start thinking about some kind of lightweight agents that can automate some of your work, and try AI in these other disciplines. And then if you can master those skills where you're using AI in a more versatile way, as the models improve, as the technology improves, your ability to execute in each of those disciplines will only get better. So think about the disciplines versus the actual technology or the model capabilities, and really have that be what's going to improve your skill. And I think that's a helpful way, at least like I think about it personally.
Yeah.
For other marketers, has gotten them to try other use cases for AI.
I think it's super useful, and even just like trying to brainstorm use case that you can use it for. I love frameworks and I love buckets, and I think you even used one of my diagrams when you did this, like that has a similar set of things. Go try something in each of these things and find a tool that can help you do that. I actually put out a newsletter last week that shows off some of the free tools you can use in a lot of these categories so that you can just go and learn these things on your own, even if it's not something that's relevant to your work. So great framework for testing and trying things. You have some extra time over the holidays, want to avoid the family, go in a room and play with AI in these 5 categories or 6 categories. 5? Are there 5? There are 5.
5 categories.
Cool. So obviously this conference is about Gen marketers. And I want to know, I asked the panelists this a minute ago, but I want to know if you think that marketing teams are shifting to having more generalists on the team and outsourcing more to specialists, and how you see org charts evolving around that in the future. Yeah.
I saw this prompt on LinkedIn about more Gen marketers and do we need more generalists? And I both agree and disagree with this, actually, this comment. I think marketing is a discipline of precision. And why we've somewhat defaulted to specialists in marketing is if you want to send out like a very high performing email. Like you need a lifecycle marketer that can think like really clearly on segmentation, audiences, understand the number of touch points, like where they are in their journey. If you want to design like a very effective performance marketing campaign, you need a really smart kind of demand gen marketer that understands what are the different mediums, the different channels, what type of content is working on best. So you need like this, and same thing with like product marketing, obviously. If you want to understand your audiences and ship a great product, you need so you need this like precision, which is somewhat defaulted us towards specialists. I think what is different now about AI, and this is the argument for more of the generalist, is that generalists can now operate with a certain level of precision that before was not really possible for them. Right. They can essentially get into the details. And actually, I had this example. I have one field marketer. I'm hiring more for enterprise. We need to expand the team. We're doing a lot of awesome events. But I have this one field marketer, and she's great. And we have this big event we're happening in January. And we have this problem where we basically have 172 accounts going to this event. And typically what we would do is you do something sort of thing. We're like, hey, account executives, here's all the account lists. Can you please go and fill the spreadsheet in? Let us know who you're interested in talking with. Have this meetings. And there's a lot of this pull of give us your information, or maybe she run a Salesforce report. But basically what she was able to do was she was able to take the account list, use internal knowledge, and pull Salesforce and essentially Databricks information and run it against an account list. And she was able to basically populate that list of who are all the contexts, what are the priorities, what are essentially stages in the different accounts, what action items would be best served from them. So she's able to like basically enrich this whole list with just internal knowledge. And then she used ChatGPT to write like internal Slack messages to every single different account. She grouped it all by AD of like, here's all the different accounts you're going. And then she basically copied and pasted and sent out like 20 Slack messages to all the individual ADs knowing like, here's your accounts, here's where they are, here's the stages, here's like the pipeline. This is how I want you to like essentially interact. And we basically built our whole like outbound strategy for this event in the matter of a couple hours. And this would have taken probably like dozens of hours across many different people, across all these different areas for her to be able to gather all this information and make it actionable. And I was like looking at this as one person can be very precise and high impact. And I think this is what's exciting about marketing today. And what motivates me is like, she didn't need any help. And she's like a high performer. She can just go out and do this herself.
She's so a Gen marketer.
You don't need these barriers that essentially help you. So like her level to act very precise is higher based on using these tools herself. And it wasn't like difficult. She wasn't like using any sort of workflow automation. She just plugged all this like right information. And this is where I think people underestimate the effectiveness of these models, ChatGPT and other type products, of being able to like synthesize a lot of context together, understand what the relationships are, and if you can prompt it correctly, like really give you a high level output. And I think that's like where we're going to see more of these gen marketers be able to operate with precision.
Yeah, I think the point here is like the specialist skills are so needed. It's just that you have a thought partner or like a sidekick to help you with those specialties, and that's AI now. And so you can do that, and you can have someone to go back and forth with if you get stuck in a way that you didn't before. And so it's enabling everyone to be able to go deeper on things if they have the right sort of skill set and understanding of how marketing works to do this. And so I just think it's easier for people to pick up a new specialty and wrap that together with your understanding of how all marketing works. Love that example. And so I think people have been asking me like, haven't we always needed generalists? What's different now? I'm like, what's different now is how fast you can learn some of these specialties. And so it means that the people that can really put all this stuff together and figure out what stands out are really going to be highly valuable. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about what people probably want to hear most about, which is how you do B2B marketing at OpenAI. And I want to talk about what was like a big bet or large campaign that you ran in 2025, and why did you choose it, and how did it work, and tell me everything.
Yeah. OpenAI, and I feel like a lot of companies really challenge people to think in first principles. How can we do things very uniquely for the company? I always feel like that's somewhat like gaslighting people when you ask them to speak in first principles. Do something like no one's ever thought of it before.
But that is the truth. You have to look at your audience. I say look at your marketing advantages, look at what you're uniquely good at, and you got to come up with creative ideas. And that's the hard part.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's actually the right framework that I apply to it. Because basically what I do is I call them superpowers. But for our B2B marketing team, I write these down and document this for my team. It's okay. What are the only things that OpenAI can do? And we have a dozen superpowers. I'm like, okay, make sure as we derive what our B2B tactics are, we are leveraging these superpowers. Because if we're not doing things that uniquely like only us can do, we're not going to have advantage. And OpenAI is fortunate enough, we have a lot of things that we can do pretty uniquely. And like a couple of superpowers we have is One, we have strong brand where people essentially know who we are. Two is just like incredible category interest in AI. People essentially will prioritize learning about AI over a lot of other things. And then three, we have an incredible research organization and we are a research lab. And how do we leverage that? So one of the big bets I did in 2025 was really kind of like bespoke field events. So my goal was to do a host of field events all over, and these were all like closed door, smaller events, but really targeting different enterprise audiences. But instead of like actually making it very like sales driven and slide and presentation driven and really more education, it's like I basically brought in researchers. And I remember actually, I was at Stripe and I spun up Stripe sessions, and I was meeting with John Collison when we were spinning this up. And we were asking, like, this is payments, like, what do we do for topics and conversations? And John had this whole thing for me. He's like, you know what the best content is like when people are passionate about the content, you can really tell. So he doesn't mean, I don't care what we do and what we show at this conference, as long as we have basically people passionate about their topics, going on stage and talking about what they're doing. So really how I thought about these field events was taking that principle of like, how do I marry like passion with like interest? And basically pulling in researchers. So I brought a lot of our researchers that are really passionate about like different
which is a unique asset that not every company has, these researchers.
Yeah.
People want to know what they're doing. Yeah,
exactly. And so we basically brought them in with different executives and really helped them clue in how we're thinking about these models. And like a lot of the ways that we are changing how we really train and think about our models, something called applied evals, where we're basically taking our technology and applying them in real world scenarios. So it actually really helps the researchers to speak with customers and speak with people in the audience to understand their use cases and their challenges. So it was really mutually beneficial for everyone. I think that's one of the beauties of like our flywheel is that the more our researchers spend with actually enterprises and different customers, actually the better our research gets. So it was a really different way to do field events where it was almost felt like a research symposium on here's how we're thinking about
it's amazing though. Yeah.
Customers really loved it. And so we did that in a lot of different types of events and formats. And that worked really well as a kind of a big bet. And generally that's how I like to think about B2B is like what can we do uniquely well? And how do we essentially leverage that into all of our tactics?
And this is exactly how I think about it. I tell everyone, don't start from, we should do this random thing. Start from what advantages do you have at a company? How can you, or you're calling them superpowers, how best can we accelerate those advantages in a way that's unique to us? And how can we test that first and then double down if it's working? And so I think that's exactly what you did here. And this is what I've done with tons of companies that I advise. And it's a much better starting place for planning when you think about what can we do that nobody else can do, because so many people fall into the random acts of marketing check the box trap, and it's a way to stay away from it. I love this example too, because I think when you're doing events, or the question right before this was about making things more human, but I think when you think about events or think about why people would go to something, you want to think about what do they not have access to regularly. So if you're doing like an exec dinner, or maybe it's a place they wouldn't normally go to dinner, maybe it's a place that they really can't get a seat at, or maybe that's not the draw, maybe it's not the restaurant, maybe it's the people that are there. In this case, like they don't have access to these researchers. They're not going to get that anywhere else. And so what can you give access to, I think is an interesting way of looking at the event strategy.
Yeah, I have this like informal metric when I think about content, which is like learnings per minute. Like how often are you like, oh wow, that's an interesting idea that I learned something new. And it's taken off the whole idea of like stand-up comedy, where you look at a really great comedian, like their number of jokes per minute is like so high, where they're basically telling all these like rapid punchlines and their jokes on jokes. And actually, when you think about it, like when you actually hear a lot of content, there's so much context and there's not a lot of learnings, and often the payoff, almost like a bad joke to continue this metaphor, doesn't really land that well. So if I can like really think about learning as I think and what's going to be a new idea, and that is, and people will inherently enjoy whatever something where they feel like they're getting like smarter and better educated about a topic. And I don't think enough marketers really like optimize for learnings when they think about their content.
Yeah, I love that. I think about that too. I was actually thinking about that for this conference, just even, the impact per minute or the things you're learning per minute, whatever it is, really is a really good way to think about things. And I don't think people think about it enough. And one of the questions I often ask people when I'm, say, reviewing their slides or reviewing their topic for a webinar or whatever it is I talk about with advisees and companies I invest in, often I say, like, what do you want them to take away? So to the joke metaphor, which I hadn't heard you say before, but the joke metaphor, it's like it builds, and you're building for this payoff. Like they're working towards the payoff. And one of my good friends is a stand-up comedian. I've always actually thought about doing an event with her because I think it would be such valuable learnings on how she does it. But her name is Amy Miller. She's awesome. She's so funny. She's like pretty famous too. So you can check her out. She worked with me at Ticketfly earlier in my career. She was a content marketer and now she's a LA stand-up comedian. So this is proving the point. It's a lot like joke writing, but you're working towards a payoff or you're working towards a takeaway, and your whole event should be around a takeaway. Like the takeaway for this event, if you haven't figured it out, is that every marketer needs to gain a Gen marketer skill set to be valuable in the AI world. You need a Gen marketer skill set. It's in the name, it's in the talks, it's everything we do, it's what our panel was about. And yes, we talked about different AI workflows and different tools, but it all tied back. So there's lots of things happening, but it comes to this payoff of I need this skill set. And oh, hey, the best place to learn that skill set happens to be in my newsletter. So like you have to be thinking about that takeaway. And so many people skip that step. They build out all the agenda items and they don't think about what is the takeaway and are people actually going to get the takeaway at the end.
Totally agree. Yeah, it's the random active marketing is very real. And we do have a lot more ways that we can be doing marketing, and there's a lot more own channels you can be pushing things out on, but not laddering up to a single message. And there's so much noise out there. I think that's
so much noise.
It's difficult to get through, and really having an idea you want to stand on and then being able to reinforce that and showing a lot of different ways, I think is very powerful.
I think the other thing that I often say to people is sometimes I make myself crazy, like my own mind, because I feel like a broken record. I feel like I'm saying the same thing over and over again. But to get your point across, like to your audience, you need to be repetitive. And so you might think that you're saying, you might, like, if you don't sound like a broken record in your head or in your marketing, like you're not doing it right, which is hard because you are on the inside and everyone around you is on the inside. And you're like, we've said that so many times, but it actually probably hasn't cut through yet. So more is not more when it comes to topics and ideas. Like focus and make sure you're getting across what you're trying to get across.
Mark Benioff early in my career was like a real like champion of this. And I remember at one point we were like thinking about his content. He just would do the same sort of content every single roadshow. And it's good marketers can change up their content for every audience, and great marketers just repeat the same content over and over again and make sure everyone hears it. And I felt like he was somewhat the master, especially early in the cloud days, of what is a single message I want everyone in the whole company repeating. And we will say this over and over again until it gets through.
I think it's so important. And like, you can change it up a little bit for what you're doing, but like I'm reusing the same 5 or 6 frameworks in almost everything that I do. It's like Fuel and Engine and Random Active Marketing. And you have to do that as a company as well. Is there a way you orient around that at OpenAI overall? Do you have like key narratives you're trying to push on the B2B marketing side? And how does that kind of ladder up to OpenAI overall? Are there things you can say there?
Yeah, it's somewhat uniquely challenged in that we have such a big consumer presence. I think what we think about in OpenAI is this is both like a blessing and challenge as marketers, that if we are not sharing information and kind of talking about what we're doing, like others will fill that vacuum. So we think about being very proactive, and I actually think it's really liberating that we have let's go out there and make our news and be somewhat very action oriented in how we talk about the company and what we're doing, and talk about positioning our launches. So we do a lot of product launches, lots of momentum, is we want to be able to write our own story. And we find in times that we're quiet, others will try to fill the vacuum and talk about what we're doing. And it's challenging. At the end of the day, I find the best type of content that I love marketing is customer success. So almost every week we're talking about different customers. And I think what we really challenge, and we have a lot of great customers, but to really go deeply into how they're actually applying the technology. So it's not just, hey, we announced a new partnership or we have this new kind of
that's boring.
Like, the logo doesn't matter. Logo does, but not necessarily.
Logo's the hook. But then why are they staying?
Yeah. So we really like, and customers are excited to work with us. So like a big part of my team is like actually sharing with customers like how we can help them with distribution and like share what they're working on as well. And our ask is like, get really detailed, get geeky on like the data, like really walk through the learnings, tell things that are not working. Like we want people to share those insights, because I think that also breeds a level of authenticity. Like we put out blog posts where OpenAI is not the leader compared to our competitors, in particular different types of benchmarks. And like we don't do that for any sort of area, just in terms of we want to be like very research oriented and authentic in terms of what we're seeing and know where we need to improve. And we often work with our customers to give us that feedback as well. So I think that's actually, that storytelling works pretty well for us, where we feature a lot of our customers and we want them to be very honest on like how they're working with us, what's working really well, but areas that we can also do better and have that level of transparency.
Yeah, and keeping that like research oriented, where the leaders in research through line going across, it sounds like everything that you're doing as well.
Yeah, very much. And I think that's something that's very unique about OpenAI.
And I think every company, yours probably won't be research, maybe it will be, depending on what company you are, but what is that thing for you? Back to the superpower, what is that thing? And you've got to find that thing. I think the other thing that you mentioned here, just around using customers, I think the best way to share use cases is to have other people share their use cases. Like the best thing when people are like, we got to map our use cases and write all this use case content. It's no, you need to get customers talking about how they use the product. Like that's the best way on the product marketing side to show off your use cases, is to have people talk about their use cases and to have, preferably they like social share about how they're using it and all of these things. And encouraging that is the best thing you can do to make people understand how to use your product. So in a lot of ways, the best product marketing is customer marketing, I think.
And I think in AI in general, and I think actually even outside of AI in products, like helping customers understand what is the value of working with you and like how does that benefit their end customers. Not every product will fall like neatly into that sort of like mentality, but I don't find marketers do a good enough job of explaining to customers how they can explain both internally and externally the use of their product. And if you can teach customers like that sort of a knowledge, I'll give you like one example. We did this one customer we had coming to one of our events, and we worked with them and we created a demo, and they loved it. And they're like, "Can you show that to our board?" We really want to show they don't get how we're using it, and so we like, did a presentation with the board and walked through like what the customer is doing. But that was like really impactful because like we actually spent the time to map a really clear demo. But that level of like actually showing like customers very clearly how they're using your product and actually helping them educate others, I think that's a great way to get stickiness within it. And a lot of people kind of sell the product and expect the customers to do that internally, but helping those champions be champions of your technology, I think that's a great way to create virality in the B2B scenario.
Yep. Love that. I'm going to ask one question from the audience. This question's from Rosalind, and it was regarding focusing on specific messages that you repeat again and again as a marketer or brand. How do you know what messages are landing, and how do you marry that focus with fast iteration? Practically speaking, what signals do you look for that lets you know you're on the right track with your message? How do you test messages, iterate on them, and learn what's working?
Yeah, honestly, again, it comes back to speaking with a lot of customers. We did this at Stripe, and I've actually brought this to OpenAI as well. Before we launch anything, we actually go out and we chat with customers about how they feel about it, get like the initial feedback, and try to get a pulse check on does this messaging make sense, what doesn't. I think there's a lot of tools you can use as well just internally. Like we actually create like our target personas within ChatGPT, and we have like different GPTs where we can like bounce ideas off internally. So I think you can actually use AI to create a lot of that same sort of messaging and communication, but just seeing what people repeat back. And then I think like for me, it's kind of like looking about what people really share on your behalf. So when we do positioning, like we can talk about, we have our employees echo it, but when we start seeing other people in our ecosystem use those same terms that we basically pushed out, that to me is like a sign that's like resonating. So if you have this few key phrases that you really want to own, see if that's being adopted and like where else that's being used. So we track very carefully our customers, the press, are they picking up on those kind of core messages that we want to deliver? And are they using that as well? It's challenging because like usually people have broads like, hey, we want to be the enterprise leader. That's very like broad and hard to be very broad. Versus something that feels like, again, more precise. So I would encourage you to, hey, what is something that's very precise? I want people to think about
unique,
us.
Very unique to you. Yeah.
Very no one else to us, and then like track for those type of like essentially messaging and hitting. And I think that's like an easy thing you can somewhat explain cross-functionally, because a lot of marketing, it's like, how do you talk to people inside your company and explain this is working? But to say, hey, we have a core idea or message we really want to get through. We feel like this is where we're differentiated. It might not necessarily be the hero message you might be expecting, but it's something we feel very differentiated on. We're going to track and see what is our typical pickup of this type of message and who's repeating it. I think that's actually somewhat of a good litmus test that people can buy on.
It's interesting. A lot of times marketers will come to me and say, oh, our competitor copied this thing that we're doing, or competitors talking about the same thing. And often this is in like an emerging category, an emerging space, because most of AI tools are set emerging categories by definition. It's new technology. And I'm like, that's great. I'm like, if you, not exactly the same thing, but for certain phrases and certain things you're talking about, or even like naming categories, like you want to build the conversation around these new categories and things together. And then you want to win. So you want to build the like if other companies can help you build awareness for what you're doing or for the category of things that you're doing and validate what you're doing. And then you, as people get down further on in the life cycle or further down in the funnel or whatever you want to call it, then you got to win. But like, it's helpful when other people are talking about what you're talking about, even if it's competitors, because it's building on that conversation. As long as you have a way to make it more crisp, or you have a way to make it more specific to you as you go down. But it's great when other people start talking about the thing that you're talking about, no matter who it is, I think.
Yeah. And I always think about this too, is I think too much in B2B marketing, it's all about business value. What I try to like actually steer towards emotion. Like how can we invoke like wonder, excitement, ideas? Like a lot of our demos that we show at these events like are not really like necessarily like primary enterprise use cases. but they're just supposed to like spark like curiosity in terms of what the technology is capable of. And I want people like walking away with a sense of like wonder. Oh wow, I did not know like the technology was capable of this. This is going to change the world in terms of XYZ. Yes. Even if they can't apply it to their direct use case, like I want them feeling like, hey, I just sniffed the future. And so that's like emotional kind of excitement, like that sort of feeling is really powerful in B2B and something I think about challenging my team with.
And people don't think about enough. So it's like, what's the takeaway from like a message learning point of view? And then what's the takeaway from a feeling? In terms of feeling might be a good thing to ask yourself for an event.
And honestly, for me, I think it's like really been helpful having such a large B2C marketing arm here at OpenAI.
Yeah.
Because I've learned a lot from my colleagues on the B2C side, because I think that's often a lot of motion in terms of how we thought about marketing to that audience. So a lot of the things that we do and connecting this like sense of wonder with ChatGPT, we can bring that into a lot of our B2B messaging. So there's some nice actually synergies between the B2B and the B2C kind of arms.
Yeah, you can learn a lot. Yeah. Having that experience of working somewhere where there's both is super valuable for B2B marketers, I think, and vice versa. All right, last question. Do you worry that overusing ChatGPT could weaken marketers' critical thinking? This is the big question.
I don't. It was interesting. We put out this, I'm thinking about a sponsor. We put out this state of enterprise adoption of AI report on Monday. And what was actually really interesting was actually looking at what we call frontier users inside companies versus median users. And we basically found like frontier users, which are the people that are using AI at the 95th percentile or higher, save on average of 8 to 10 hours a week in work, while median users like basically save somewhere between 0 and 1. And so like the people on the frontier that are asking really questions, the people that are really curious about the technology, your quote unquote like most critical thinkers, are the ones that are actually adopting this technology the fastest. And there's certainly a widening gap between like the critical thinkers and how they use AI versus the people that are not really asking those questions. And I think about this a lot is like the thing that I want to hire for the most when it comes to generalists that will be great with AI is like this natural curiosity, like this ability to have this examined life where you were asking questions. And I think about it like on a Google Doc. Like I'll get a Google Doc at times and I'll read through it, and I know 10 or 15 people have read through this Google Doc and there's no comments, or there's one comment. And I'm like, how can you read through this, like this whole like strategy and not have more questions? Like
right, and not, yes.
Yeah, and things like that. And I find that's like a common
I get crap for how many comments I leave on those things. I'm the other way. People are like, Emily, please tone it down. I'm like, it got me thinking. The more comments, the more it made me think too.
Critical thinking, And I think AI can help a lot of people on that too. But I typically find the people that are the same ones who are asking all those questions, that were critical thinkers, are also the ones that are adopting technology. And I think like the assault on critical thinking in AI, it's like not necessarily an AI problem. It's more about like how we teach this ability to examine the things around us and ask questions. And I think this kind of goes back just like the mind frame of like how we want to educate people in our workforce, how we want to educate people in our schools, how we want to talk about children. But it's asking a lot of questions, questioning your environment, like actually having that sort of mindset and that skill set is really critically important. And if you are someone that's looking at the world and asking how something got there, like why does that exist? What can we do better as an operating mindset? Like you're going to be a very critical thinker in how you adopt this. But on the other side, what is interesting, and this is where I think people are worried about critical thinking when it comes to AI, is that I've also seen in Google Docs, people leave comments, like this is hilarious, people leave comments and it like exceeds the character count available in the Google Doc comments threshold. And like before AI, I never saw someone leave a comment so long that it ran out of character counts. Like, no one would ever do that. And like now you see this occasionally, like they clearly took that idea, pasted this into ChatGPT.
Okay, so signs you're using AI for your writing, like too many M dashes. I've been using M dashes forever. It's part of my name, M dash. And so I'm going to keep doing it. And also when the comments are too long for the character limit.
But this is where I think critical thinking needs to be improved or thought through. It's how do you take a lot of information, and it's not just asking a great question. It's how can you take that same question or that idea or the message you want to convey, and how can you concisely, and I'll repeat that word again, like concisely, but how can you communicate that outwards? So how can you take something where you have a question, think about the right way to format it, and like concisely actually communicate that to others? And I think this is where people get challenged, is they somewhat, not necessarily the critical thinking with the input, it's the laziness in the output. And allowing people to do this, where they've asked the right questions, they've examined the right problems, they've zeroed in on the opportunity or the challenge, but they're not thinking clearly enough about how do they take that sort of like premonition that they had and convince that into a great output and understanding of others. And that's where I really harp on my team as well too, is like how do you convey ideas outwards. And again, I don't think that's necessarily a critical thinking issue. That's more about like a messaging output issue with AI, and not using this as a tool where you just take your whole ChatGPT history
and then spit it back out. Use that. Yeah. That's what I was answering this question right before you started. It's very relevant. It's use it as a thought partner, as a draft, but then refine it to speak at the right altitude to the right people at the right time. And I think some of the areas where I've seen marketers that I've managed or even advised struggle the most is communicating the right information to the right people, like at the right, what I call altitude for this is an executive, this is a salesperson. They don't understand this or they understand this. And I think that's another thing you can actually do in ChatGPT as well, is just really explain who you're talking to. Like, I'm trying to share this information with a sales leader as a marketing leader, I think is really helpful, like role play it almost. But anyway, we could talk about this stuff forever. We're at time. Dane, I want to thank you so much for being here. I think everyone wants to hear everything that's happening at OpenAI. So this was like a great glimpse. I really appreciate it. It was great to chat with you. I had a lot of fun and great to hear how you're doing things. So thank you so much again. You should follow Dane on LinkedIn, and I know they're hiring over there, so check those out. And thanks again so much for being here. Anything else you want to share, want to promote, or
no,
is that good?
I think that is. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Yeah. And enjoyed the conversation. I don't know. This is such, I geek out with this type of stuff. It's so fun to talk about.
This is my whole job. Yeah. It's great. Just talk about marketing with marketers all day long. It's the best. I love it. Thank you so much, Dan. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.